they always picked somewhere expensive. This year, it was a French fusion place downtown, all dim lighting and hushed service, where the air smelled like butter and pretension. The kind of place where the wine list has its own leather binder, and the server corrects your pronunciation gently but condescendingly. I arrived first. Always did. I sat alone for nearly 15 minutes, watching the candles flicker against the polished silverware, listening to cutlery chime like tiny bells. Then the others trickled in. My parents, both dressed like they'd stepped out of a luxury catalog. My brother Lucas, phone in hand, already bored. And finally, my sister. Vanessa made an entrance. Hair blown out, smile calibrated, heels too high for sincerity. She air-kissed our mother, laughed too loud at a joke no one made, and slid into the seat beside me like it belonged to her. Dinner began politely. It always does. Talk of property taxes, Lucas's new job at some VC firm, Vanessa's latest yoga retreat. I nodded, smiled when required, took small sips of water. No one asked what I'd been up to and I didn't offer. Then came dessert. And the real performance. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, lifting her glass of Sauvignon Blanc like she was making a toast. "By the way," she said lightly, "I've got this one, guys. I'll cover dinner tonight." My father chuckled approvingly. "That's generous, sweetie." Then she turned to me, voice syrupy with false concern. "I mean, Morgan's between jobs, right? Let's not burden her." The table went still. I felt every eye slide toward me, some with pity, some amusement. Vanessa smiled, wide and empty. "It's okay, sis," she added. "I know things have been tight." I didn't flinch, just folded my napkin slowly, laid it beside my plate, and looked at the centerpiece instead of her. No one said a word. No one stopped her. Not even Mom, who used to slap Vanessa's wrist for teasing me at the breakfast table. Now she just adjusted her bracelet and changed the subject. I said nothing, because I didn't need to. She'd already said enough. And dinner wasn't over yet. I didn't storm out. That's the part no one ever understands. People expect dramatics, raised voices, spilled wine, maybe a slammed chair. But I just sat there, still as the linen napkin in my lap, and took a sip of water like Vanessa hadn't just offered the table my dignity, neatly plated between creme brulee and condescension. Silence was something I'd learned to wear like armor. The waiter returned with dessert menus. I declined. My appetite had folded in on itself the moment she said tight. Tight. As if my life were a pair of jeans I couldn't quite afford to button. Vanessa leaned in again, all faux intimacy. "I'm only teasing, Morgan," she said, eyes wide with innocence. "You know I love you." That word didn't mean what she thought it did. Mom changed the subject vacation homes in Sonoma. Dad nodded, clearly relieved the tension had smoothed over. Lucas scrolled through his phone like always, present only in body. No one checked in on me. No one asked if I was okay, because no one expected me to be. And honestly, I wasn't. But not for the reasons they thought. I wasn't hurt because they believed I was broke. I was angry because I had let them believe it. It was easier that way, for a while. To be invisible, to let Vanessa shine, let Lucas inherit, let the family legacy orbit around names that looked good in Christmas newsletters. I had learned long ago that being quiet was safer than being misunderstood. But sitting there, watching them sip wine that cost more than a week of my rent 2 years ago, I realized something had shifted. Not in them, in me. I didn't need them to believe in me anymore. I didn't even need them to see me. Because tomorrow, everything would change. And the version of Morgan they thought they knew, the one they pitied, the one they whispered about behind napkins, she wouldn't be at the next family dinner. But I would. Growing up, the Reynolds family had a template. Our holidays looked like magazine spreads. Perfect lighting, perfect smiles, a curated symphony of wealth and tradition. Everyone played their part. Vanessa, the polished one, always camera ready, always right. Lucas, the quiet achiever, MBA, investor, golden child by default. And me? Morgan, the creative one, the odd one, the quiet background character no one could quite place. I didn't rebel. I didn't crash cars or dye my hair blue. I just chose differently. Majored in hospitality analytics instead of law or finance. Interned at kitchens instead of shadowing lawyers. I loved systems, timing, how a well-run restaurant could feel like choreography. It made sense to me in a way my family never did. They didn't say it, not out loud, but I saw it. The pause when I spoke. The polite nods that came 2 seconds too late. At family events, I was always still figuring things out. I remembered one Christmas vividly. I had just finished managing my first full banquet event. 300 guests. No late courses. Not one complaint. I was exhausted, proud, wired. At dinner, Mom smiled and said, "Morgan helped organize a little party. Isn't that cute?" Vanessa had just returned from Dubai, and Lucas had made partner. I disappeared between the stories. The older I got, the clearer the pattern became. They didn't dislike me. They just didn't know what to do with me. I didn't fit the Reynolds brand. I didn't attend alumni galas. I didn't post beach selfies from Santorini. I worked. Quietly. Late nights, broken ovens, staffing issues, budget spreadsheets. I learned everything from the ground up. And eventually, I stopped explaining. Because in their eyes, struggle wasn't noble, it was embarrassing. They'd rather believe I was lost than admit I'd simply chosen a different path. One they didn't understand, but I understood it. And when you build something brick by brick in the dark, you don't need a spotlight. You just need time. And mine was almost here. The last time I brought something up at a family meeting, it was dismissed in under a minute. I'd suggested a small investment. A hospitality tech pilot I'd been working on with a local kitchen incubator, real-time vendor tracking, cost-saving modules, staff rotation efficiency. My voice barely reached the end of the table before my father raised a hand. "Sweetheart," he said, using that tone reserved for messes he didn't want to clean. "Maybe it's time to pause all these little experiments. Focus on something. Stable. Stable. That word again. Like my ambition was a cracked window they needed to tape shut. Vanessa looked up from her phone just long enough to twist the knife. "You could always come work for me," she'd said sweetly. "We're revamping our wellness line, and I need someone to help manage the, logistics." Logistics. She said it like it rhymed with trash bins. That was a year ago. I didn't argue, didn't defend my pilot. I nodded, packed up my mock-ups, and left before dessert. What I didn't tell them was that I'd already sold the tool. Quietly. Not for much, but enough to register my first LLC. Enough to move into a studio over a bakery downtown. Enough to learn what I needed to learn the hard way. I sold my car. Gave up my apartment. Lived small, worked long. I shadowed chefs. Interviewed night managers. Learned why most small restaurants fail before year 3. I didn't build a startup. I built a survival manual, disguised as a company. And I wasn't looking for venture capital. I was looking for leverage. What I also didn't tell them? The head chef at their favorite bistro, Raymond, he was the first person who asked me what I actually wanted to build. He used to cook with my dad back in the day. He remembered me as a shy teenager drawing inventory charts on napkins. When I told him my plan, he didn't laugh. He offered me a test kitchen and a real chance. From that one nod of belief, I started everything. While they were busy writing me out of the family script, I was authoring something else entirely, and the ink was nearly dry. Raymond's kitchen wasn't glamorous. It smelled like garlic and grease. The tiles were chipped, and the walk-in fridge door had to be kicked shut with just the right amount of force. But it was mine, at least, after hours. When the dinner rush died down and the staff trickled out, that space became my lab. I brought my laptop, a crate of receipts, and a pocket-sized notebook filled with crossed-out sketches and messy math. No one in my family knew I was working out of a restaurant basement. They thought I was between projects. Which was fine. Let them think that. Because while they were sipping wine and rebranding trust funds, I was tracing patterns, understanding where money leaked, where hours were wasted, how broken inventory systems silently strangled small businesses. I didn't have investors. I had Raymond's belief and enough stubbornness to outlast failure. I coded late into the night, crashed on the worn-out couch in the break room, then woke up at 6 to sweep the floor before the morning crew arrived. I didn't post anything about it. No motivational quotes, no fake it till you make it selfies. Just work. Quiet, repetitive, invisible. And slowly, like water wearing away stone, things started to click. My software flagged an over-ordering issue that saved a bakery chain $12,000 in 2 months. A fast casual restaurant in Jersey cut their food waste by 23% using our pilot model. I started getting calls, quiet ones, from real operators with real problems. The name on the paperwork wasn't Morgan Reynolds. I used a different one, something they wouldn't recognize. I wanted the product to speak before my last name got in the way. By the end of that year, we'd onboarded our 50th location. And the restaurant where it all began? I made an offer. Not flashy, just fair. Raymond cried when he signed the papers. I never thought I'd sell to someone who actually cared, he said, wiping his hands on a flour-stained apron. I didn't tell him that I wasn't buying a restaurant. I was reclaiming a piece of myself. One they'd all dismissed too soon. The dinner reservation had been Vanessa's idea. She texted the family group chat 3 weeks in advance. Celebrating Dad's birthday, everyone clear your calendar. French place downtown. Dress nice. She included a little champagne emoji, as if that softened the command. I confirmed with a simple, okay. No one noticed I didn't ask about the location. No one remembered it was the restaurant I now owned. I arrived 10 minutes early, not as a guest, as a host. I didn't come through the front entrance. I came in through the alley, through the kitchen, where the new line cooks called me boss, and the sommelier asked if I wanted the reserve menu printed tonight. I said no. I wanted everything to feel normal exactly the way they remembered it. That was the point. By the time I entered the dining room, the family was already seated. I wore the same navy blazer I'd worn to a cousin's rehearsal dinner 5 years ago. My hair was in a loose bun. No designer handbag, no jewelry, just Morgan, the version of me they expected. Vanessa spotted me and beamed. She looked perfect, of course. Cream silk blouse, glass of rosé in hand, ready to host. Morgan, she called across the table. Come sit by me. I want all the updates on your sabbatical. Sabbatical. As if the past 2 years had been some kind of soul-searching yoga retreat. I sat beside her, smiled, nodded when she asked if I wanted to split an appetizer, and then she did what Vanessa always does. She performed, talked about her firm's expansion into wellness consulting, dropped names, vacation plans, loose hints about a new client in Monaco, every sentence a stage, every pause, a cue for applause. Then came the familiar pivot. She lifted her glass, like she was toasting something. And of course, this one's on me, she said, flashing a grin. Morgan's still figuring things out, right? There it was. Again. And I let it sit there. Didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Just looked at her and smiled soft, steady. Because this time, I wasn't here to argue. I was here to watch. The server approached, just as Vanessa finished her sentence. He was young new, probably. Nervous, maybe. Holding a leather-bound check presenter, he paused at the head of the table, eyes scanning the group. Then he looked at me. His posture shifted. Straighter, more sure. Miss Reynolds, he said. Your table is ready whenever you'd like it. The private room's been prepared per your usual request. Vanessa blinked. I'm sorry, what? He turned to her. Polite but firm. Apologies, ma'am. The owner prefers to dine in the chef's suite when entertaining guests. Silence. Thick. Sharp. Dad lowered his wine glass mid-sip. Mom's mouth opened slightly, then closed without sound. Lucas stopped scrolling. I met the server's eyes. Thank you, I said softly, then stood. Vanessa laughed, a single breathy note that didn't land. Wait, Morgan, is this like a partnership thing? Consulting? I looked at her. No, I said. I own the place. She stared at me, confused. Since when? Since the night you offered me a job managing your product shipments, I replied, voice even. Another pause. A different kind of silence now. Not stunned. Exposed. The kind of silence that sits between the floorboards and waits. I nodded toward the server. "Will be just a moment." He left. I turned back to the table, hands relaxed at my sides. Dad spoke first, clearing his throat like it might clear the past. "Morgan, why didn't you tell us?" Mom followed. "We had no idea you were doing so well." And Vanessa, her voice barely above a whisper, "You own this?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted the weight of that truth to settle. Wanted the silence to stretch just long enough for them to feel it. Not the restaurant. The years. The jokes. The dismissals. The glances across linen-draped tables. Then I smiled, slow and quiet. "I thought I'd let you finish your story first." After the shock settled, the scramble began. Vanessa leaned in, still smiling, but her eyes searched mine like a strategist reading a map. "Morgan, we should talk," she said. "This place is incredible. With your traction, we could brand this into something national. I know people who'd kill for a founder like you." I didn't blink. "I'm not looking for a partner," Dad chimed in next, voice suddenly full of warmth. "You've built something really impressive, sweetheart. If you need guidance connections, we're here. Family helps family." Lucas, ever the tactician, added, "You know, Morgan, our firm's exploring restaurant tech portfolios. Maybe we can align resources, boost growth, scale fast." They had rehearsed this tone before. Not for me, but for rooms with polished tables and closing deals. It was strange, really, how quickly embarrassment turns into admiration when success becomes undeniable. Mom reached for my hand, the same one she once gently pushed away during dinner when I tried to show her early designs on a napkin. "We're proud of you, darling. Truly. You just surprised us." I slid my hand back. Not abruptly, just enough. "That's the thing," I said. "I stopped trying to be seen by people who only look when the lights come on." Vanessa's smile faltered. "You were building this all along," she murmured. I nodded. "While you were watching me disappear, I was learning how to stay gone." They fell silent again. Because it's one thing to ignore someone. It's another to realize they no longer need your approval to exist. "I didn't come here for applause," I added. "I came to settle the story." Dad frowned. "What story?" "The one where I'm the sister who couldn't figure it out," I said. I looked at them all, then let the weight of the moment fall. "And just so we're clear, this isn't a family business." Then I turned and walked toward the kitchen. The private room was waiting, and for the first time in years, I wasn't. The private room was quiet when I entered. Not sterile warm. Wooden shelves lined with jars of preserved lemons and pickled onions, a handwritten chalkboard menu on the wall, and soft jazz humming from somewhere above the range. It wasn't designed to impress. It was designed to feel real. I exhaled for the first time that night. The server brought a simple dish, pan-seared trout with charred lemon and rosemary. My favorite. I hadn't ordered it. They just knew. That's what happens when you build a place with care. It remembers you. I sat alone. But I wasn't lonely. Outside that door, they were still adjusting. Still re-narrating the story to fit a version of me they could tolerate. Let them. Because the truth is, I didn't build this restaurant to prove anything to them. I built it for people like Raymond. For line cooks who stayed late because their name wasn't on the door but their soul was in every plate. For servers with tired feet and bright smiles who learned how to make guests feel seen even when they weren't. And for the girl I used to be, the one who used to draw supply chain models on the backs of takeout menus, thinking no one would ever take her seriously. I used the profits from the first year to start a quiet fund grants for culinary students with no connections, housing stipends for part-time kitchen staff, a rotating apprenticeship for at-risk teens. No press, no plaques, just progress. The Reynolds family liked to invest in legacy, but I was more interested in roots. Not names carved into marble. Names spoken around staff tables at the end of a long shift, over shared meals and laughter that wasn't forced. That's what I wanted to build. And slowly, quietly, I was. Not everything needs to be loud to last. Some things are strongest when they're grown underground. And when they finally bloom, there's nothing anyone can do to stop them. That night, after the last dish was cleared and the kitchen lights dimmed to a soft amber glow, I walked through the back hallway toward the old staff locker room. It still smelled like lemon cleaner and burnt toast. On the far wall, where we used to tack up birthday cards and shift schedules, hung something new, a framed photo. It wasn't mine. One of the dishwashers, Sarah, had taken it on an old film camera during our first staff appreciation dinner. It showed the line cooks in stained aprons, elbow to elbow, smiling over folding tables lined with paper plates and Tupperware sides. You could see the steam rising from the trays. Someone had stuck a sticky note to the punch bowl that read, "Do not spike, we know who you are." And in the corner, barely in frame, was me, laughing, fork in hand. No makeup, no armor. Just there. That photo had been pinned up for months, before someone thought to frame it. I stood in front of it longer than I expected, because it wasn't about me being in the picture. It was about me finally being in the room. Not as someone's daughter, not as a disappointment, as myself. I used to think healing would come from confrontation, loud words, final lines, doors slammed shut. But it didn't. It came from building something they couldn't take credit for. From showing up every day for people who didn't need me to sparkle just to show up. It came from reclaiming the version of me they tried to edit out of the story. The one who stayed late, who watched, who listened. The one who chose not to scream, but to grow. I turned off the light, the last one in the building, and stepped out into the alley. It was quiet. No applause, no headlines, just the sound of my own footsteps, steady on concrete. And for the first time, it felt like enough.